Greetings and salutations, my name is JW608 and today I am playing StarMade. And we have covered the basics of the basics and the advanced basics. Well, at least the basics of building, so now we know mechanically how to build. Now we need to know how to build. So let's go to a new sector, so everything's nice and fresh. I'm using admin warp and admin scan and all that jazz because I am an admin on my own personal world as my single player world. I'm also going to press F3, which brings me into creative mode if you have it turned on and all that jazz. Anyway, so let's build a spaceship. So in order to get a spaceship, you press X. X to create a new ship or station, in this case a new ship. Please enter the name of your choice. And then you enter the name. Let's see, we're going to say it. Unlimited power. Alright. So this is the spaceship Unlimited Power. So can you guess what we're going to talk about today? That's right, we're going to talk about power. Now, I'm going to make a little platform here. See, so we have something we can actually look and see. So turn off my flashlight because it makes things too bright. Now, power blocks. There are basically two power blocks. The blue ones and the yellow ones. Orange ones? Those ones. You have your reactor and your stabilizer. Let's see. And we want to come over here to this left and we're going to go to status. And to the power. We're going to shrink everything else so we don't get all confused. This is going to tell us the number of reactor blocks, the blue ones, and the stabilizers, the yellow ones. It's going to tell us the groups of stabilizers, the number of chamber blocks, conduits. We'll get to those later. The active reactor, because you can have more than one reactor. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's recharge rate, the consumption, docks, and all that. Let's see, and I believe it's... Here under system, you can choose which reactor. Well, we'll get to that. What is a reactor? A reactor is this block. I now have a functioning reactor. This reactor, if we go back to stats, it's 1, and it is creating recharge E per second. Energy per second is generating 100 energy per second. And it's also running at 100% efficiency. If I look at it with all my tooltips on, it says stabilization there. Total stabilization also right there is 100%. And notice, as we put down more blocks, now we're getting 200, 300, 400, 500. We have 5 blocks, each generating 500 energy per second. Then we have 6 blocks, 7 blocks, 8 blocks, 9 blocks, 10 blocks. We are now generating 1,000 energy per second. Our total stabilization, that is our efficiency, is at 100%. Now, in order for this to be a reactor, these blocks have to be touching. If they're not touching, then we have 2 reactors, a yellow one and the active one. Now you may be saying, well, that's great. Well, we'll just have 2 reactors, double the power. Not so. Only 1 reactor can be active at any time. So this one is going to have 5 blocks of reactors, so it's going to generate 500 energy per second. So we come here, and on this screen, the status here, it shows the active reactor is 1,000. But if you go to the system here on the left on the build tool, there are 2 reactors. This one is 5, as of size of 5, and is generating no energy. This one is the active one. It is, well, of course, it doesn't say it's generating energy or not. So, how do we switch between them? Because you can switch between these reactors. Well, if you look at it and press R, or you can hold down Tab, Ship, or Station, Reactor, and it brings up this menu. We'll talk more about this one later. But here we go. Reactors, size 10. Size level is 0. 1 to 100 blocks is level 0. It requires 0 chambers, and we'll get into chambers later. Now I can go next, and I can switch to this reactor. I can cycle through them. So that's a size 5. let's see, we have a 3, a 4, a 2, and a 1. And being kitty corner like that, those two are not connected. They have to be adjacent to one of the sides. So again, you can use the tab shift reactor. No, I'm sorry, tab ship reactor, or as a shortcut, look at a power block and press R. And so now we can cycle through. That one is 1, 4, 3, 5, 2. Let's say we want this one to be the main reactor, the switch reactor. It's going to usually take a little bit of cooldown, and you'll notice our old main is now yellow, and this one is real colored, if you will. And by holding one of these two blocks in your hands, it will highlight in yellow through even your ship and it'll highlight yellow the inactive reactors, and it'll highlight this bluish purplish color the active reactors. So you can only have one reactor active at any given time. So you may ask, well, why on earth would you want more than one reactor? Well, that's a good question, because you might want a backup reactor. You have a reactor that's setting up in the front, and it gets destroyed by evil space pirates. Your main reactor is just obliterated. So you have another reactor in the back that you can switch to, and you can use its power to power up your hyperdrive or your thrusters and just get home. That's one reason. Or you can have different reactors with different module configurations you can switch between. And we'll talk more about modules and chambers and all that. Basically, think buffs for RPG games. So let's go back to our 1,000 unit reactor. Now, notice we were talking about earlier about stabilization. Stabilization's at 100%. Now it is at 90.9%, 83%, 76%. And the more I add, the lower it goes. So let's see. Let's take it back to 100. So that is 10 to 5. So now there are 20 reactors. So you would expect me to be generating, around 2,000 energy. I am actually generating 1,000. Why is that? Because my stabilization is 50%. So we're running at 50% efficiency. They really need to standardize this efficiency, stabilization. They need the schema, or the whole team needs to standardize this. And I think they also need to combine these two menus so we get everything we need at once. But anyway, after 10 blocks, your reactor becomes unstable and therefore unusable. That's where these come in. These are stabilizers. Stabilizers add stability. So notice I add one stabilizer and I go up to 55% stabilized. Add another one, 60. Add a few more. Let's add that many. I am now 100% stabilized. So that now means I will get all 2,000 power from my reactor. So this was actually a much, much more complicated mechanic that has been simplified by the Quickfire initiative, thankfully. Because this used to get really, really nasty and messy and hard to configure and calculate. And while it worked on basic principles of distance and math and whatnot, it was hard to predict the outcome. Now it's very predictable. You used to have to worry about the placement of the stabilizers, so they had to be at certain distances and spaces, which made it favor very long ships or very wide ships. Now you can place stabilizers anywhere you want. And notice these are in a group. I've not lost any stabilization. Those are no longer in groups. Because stabilizers, while it does say there are groups of stabilizers, it doesn't actually care. So the stabilizers, you can just tuck these around anywhere. I think you can actually have 20 groups before the reactor loses count. And also it gets a little hairy between having multiple reactors and stabilizers, but that's for another day. So Stabilizers, basically you need one stabilizer per reactor, plus or minus 10, because you get the first 10 reactors free. So you get 1,000 energy free. Well, free from stabilization. Anything after that must have one stabilizer to its name. Otherwise, it won't do anything. See, if I add these 2 blocks, my recharge, I remove those 2 blocks, my recharge is 2400, add them, 2400. Then I add the stabilizers to bring it up to 2600. And I can mix these in. There we go. Is that 100% efficiency? It is. And you can mix them. You can tuck stabilizers in different places and all that good stuff. Very, very much simplified from Power 2 and from original Power. Original Power, man alive, that was an interesting thing. Because for this, it's fairly linear. You put down blocks, you get blocks. So let's see. Let's give an example. For the old school, or for those of you who run across old power ships and stations and whatnot and wondering what on earth is going on, and the new system, this block gives you 800 power because there are 8 of them. And the old system, that block gave you 800 power. What? Or, well, it actually gave you a very different number, but this would be the exact same that as this. And it got really weird because it didn't count blocks in between, because this shape and this shape would have been the exact same. It actually looked for the outside diameter, the longest straight line of reactors, and you could have them in different groups. So we had all these weird shapes people were designing, and they would interlink, and they would try to get the perfect cube of power. In fact, I've done this. I have several videos. I think it's season 1 or series 1 or whatever I ended up calling it, of showing you how to sneak power in and all that good stuff, and experimenting with pre-designed power cubes, and we had capacitors, and it was I know people railed and whined and cried about Power 2 changing it to the much simpler, you have 8 blocks, you get 8 blocks worth of power, instead of saying these two are identical, do this like archaic puzzle to figure out what actually is going on. And it boiled down to everyone ignoring the weird blocks and just making checker patterns, because all the reactors would stack together, so you wouldn't need to. So different groups of reactors would still add up to the same reactor, because we didn't have reactors, we just had power blocks. So this would be the more efficient than anything else, just running these checker lines of power. And I did that. And then we had soft power caps and batteries and auxiliary power, and it was toward the end, I know people looked on it fondly and complained loudly when Power 2 simplified it. It was a horrible mess. Power 2 came and it introduced its own unique problems, and it was a horrible mess. Quickfire has come in and has simplified it further, so now I can explain. You put down 8 blocks, you get 8 blocks worth of power. You put down 12 blocks, you get 10 blocks worth of power, until you add in stabilizers. Doesn't matter where the stabilizers were. You can have a kilometer-long ship and have the stabilizers in the front, reactors in the back, or you can have them rubbing up against each other like that. Now, the reactors have to be in a group, but the stabilizers don't. And it used to give bonuses for stabilizer groups being in different positions, and it was horribly confusing. Me personally, I like this system better. It gives a more predictable, or not a more easily predictable system, and it's more welcoming to newcomers instead of, here, do this complicated math problem and then this archaic puzzle. So each axis needs to be a certain length, and Or just make a checkerboard pattern, and then we have capped the power anyway. Used to be 1 million cap, I think. Then you could actually get it to 6 million with auxiliary. That was a long time ago, but you'll still run into some of those blocks. Let's see. Yep, there we go. There's a power auxiliary block. It's still in the add remove because, see, noted as old, because you're going to run into ships that, or you may run into ships that have it, so you can replace it more easily. But it's impossible to put them down now. Anywho, I have been GW608, this has been StarMade, and this has been the absolute basics of power. Now you can power a spaceship. But we're going to talk more about that next time.